Oh, hello again everyone, welcome back. Thanks for visiting once again for another kit review. I've been perhaps not purchasing quite so many kits these days, and I've been building a few, which is perhaps a great relief to various people, certainly to myself. I have some projects to complete which I think should be done in the near future for various other things. I have a more large scale project that I'm working on, which you'll find out about at some stage in the near future, but I won't say anything more about that at this stage. But today we're going to look at the P38 Lightning, the 1/48 scale kit from Tamiya, or Tamiya, depending on where you come from in the world. As you can see, it is Mr. encrusted as usual, and we can see the Pacific variant here. That's the variant that I will be building here. I'm going to go through this in short order because, to be truthful, these are, I think they've been described as very much shake and bake in the parlance, and particularly 1/48. There are limited avenues for introducing extra detail, but I will have a little look at this. But there are some interesting features on this kit, on this aircraft anyway, which I write about in my substack. Some of you will know I write a substack. For those of you that don't, I will remember to put a link into the comments section of this, or the introduction of this video, so that you can go and have a look if you wish to. I write in some detail about the history and so on and so forth. You know, it's a collation of background information. But if you care to subscribe to the channel, I'd like it very much if you did, and thank you very kindly. It didn't cost anything, but it does help the channel to grow, and it'd be nice to be able to appeal to more people. So anyway, let's remove the Mistrons and get the lid off, and we'll put that away somewhere, away over in the corner there, and expose the bits and pieces. I've had a beginning look at this kit, and I will say there's quite a lot in here, as you can see. If I just take these bits off, there's a fair collection of plastic sprues here, including the clear ones. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different sprues of varying sizes that we can see here, and we'll pull them out as we see fit across the little look that we're doing. There's some background information here, and also something on the essentially the furniture on the Lightning. You can see this picture here, this line drawing here, and it points out various things like the turbochargers here, and you can also see things like the intercooler air intakes and so on, this sort of thing. These are quite important little features that I write about in my Substack piece. We'll talk a little bit about some other features and facets. So that's that. There's a good old tech tips, and you know, the safety tips and all this sort of thing. Don't breathe in the paint, and shake it well, and glue things and paint them, and all sorts of things like that. And what I particularly like about this one, particularly this kit I've seen, is this very detailed and very large sheet for the A scheme and the B scheme. I'll show you the A scheme because this is the one that I'll do, but you can see just exactly how large this is. I mean, you could almost turn it into a poster if you put it in a frame. I mean, and it really is beautifully done, and this highlights, I think, Tamiya at their really at their very best. They're quite fabulous. But the scheme is a bit drab, shall we say, in the sense that it's olive drab on the top and neutral grey underneath. And there are no brightly coloured propeller spinners or anything like that, as there would be in the A scheme. I'll just show you that quickly. You can see that's a little bit more brightly coloured, but I'm not going for that one. The reason I'm going for this one, it was one of the aircraft that undertook Operation Vengeance, which was the attack on Admiral Yamamoto's aircraft, which the American intelligence services, I think operating in Honolulu, intercepted coded transmissions and were able to decode them to say that Yamamoto was going to be on one of 2 bombers. And so a squadron of P38 Lightnings flew fast, high and far to attack these 2 bombers, and succeeded in bumping off Mr. Yamamoto. This had some effect on the Pacific War, because he was a great strategist and tactician and so on. However, be that as it may, I'm interested in the technical aspects of the aircraft as well, which was one of Clarence Kelly Johnson's output across many years, and did some really interesting things with it. As you would expect with Tamiya, there's no shortage of stick-on masks, which you'll have to cut out with a pair of scissors. These are very good. I like this a lot. It's included in the thing, and we see other manufacturers jumping on that now, and that's met with great approval, I can see, and also the decals. So as we're using the kit scheme, I will be using the decals here. They look reasonably good. They don't look thick to any meaningful degree, I have to say. We'll need the 147. If I can make a mask of these stars, then I will try and do so. I'm working on that at the moment. I think it's a reasonably complex thing to do with a cry cut, but if I do succeed, I will show you how I did it. Which, I mean, for some people it may be really easy, but for me, a bit of an old duffer, then it perhaps not so much. But what we'll do is we'll move the plastic out the way. We'll take a look at that as we go, so that we can acquaint ourselves with the components, and we'll see how the production process, as it were, slips together. And I mean, essentially the first couple of pages here will be for the assembly of the cockpit. Again, remember, two variants, and there's an F and a G variant. So I'm doing the A variant, which I think is the F variant, and the G variant's a slightly later one. They made some different changes, or some changes to the way that things were set up, and what we can see here, particularly in the section of the cockpit which is down here. Let's just I'll do that. That's probably going to make it easier. We can see down here we're looking at detail in this. Now, these side panels are quite interesting, because what I've noticed in my research is with relation to, now where's the old poker gone? I'll use this instead. What I've noticed in relation to these particular areas on photographs is the inside of the cockpit does look really pretty tidy. There aren't too many sort of trailing wires poking around and moving about the place, which is very interesting, which means that there'll be a limited amount of extra detailing in terms of wires that one can do. However, I'll look maybe to do some here at some stage. Difficult to know precisely what all these components are, but what we have here, these two sections here, as you can see, these are the throttle controls at the front here. There would be ordinarily two throttle controls and then two throttle governors, and I don't know where my poker's gone, so I'm using this blunt object, and then in front of them, forward of those, are the mixture controls and the idle cutoff. So you have idle cutoff at one end, and then you have rich, I think is the other thing, or running rich or something like that is the other setting. And then actually down in behind there you have the boost controls and supercharger controls, which would generally be set to automatic. As you can see as well, the control column arrangement here is slightly different in the sense that it's placed, I think, to one side of the cockpit. We'll have a look at that. In fact, let's see if we can pull that out. That's probably a good idea without throwing it on the floor, which I just did. So I had to pick it up. There we are. Look, this is the show with no script, and also no budget as well. Haha. So let's just orientate this correctly. As you can see here from this, the control column root goes in there and sits into there. I'm not quite sure what goes above that. Something will go in there, and then what have we got here? We've got a lever that goes into that section. Oh, I see what's happened here. This G9 is turned around that way like that. So this lever here, so looking at this lever, this is the hydraulic lever for the undercarriage and the flaps. It's really bloody ingenious, this. So your control column sits here, and then just here, just slightly forward of the, slightly after the seat, so that the handle points forward here, is the hydraulic lever, which is this thing here. Now this hydraulic lever sits in, and that handle faces actually the other way from what we're looking at it. So if I put this the right way round like this, you can probably see this. I'm trying to do this in a way that you can see it. Let's just zero out a little bit. There we go. So that, there we go, that lever there sits in actually just there, and the seat will sit in here. But that lever doubles as the undercarriage lever for the undercarriage, of course, and also there's a little valve lever behind it that you can move, and then you can use it to use as a flap lever. So that's that. These are all going in here. The throttle controls we've already mentioned. These will need to be painted quite carefully because they are fairly small. I mean, if we look at the, let's just turn that the right way up. If we look at the side panel, the wall panel here, we can see that it is. I'll zero it in just a little bit and have a quick look and put a bit of light on this. You can see they're fairly tiny. That's the end of a at the end of a paintbrush, because I don't know where the bloody poker's gone. Oh, well, I've just seen it. There we are. Let's just move that over there. You can see there's my poker here. You know how big that is generally. Those are the levers there. That's the governor controls, and then the throttle controls will go on front of it. So 2 engines, 2 sets of everything, and that includes on the instrument panels as well. So there's 2 engine revs and 2 mixture controls and blah 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 blah. So all of that kind of thing. So it's a nice little detailed section to put together there. Everybody likes doing cockpits, I'm sure. So what you clue up with in the end, having put all these walls in together, is a nice little box section. As I say, it's not too busy, and therefore there's not too much detail that you can add. I will put something in at some stage, but it's as well to, what I will probably do with this is paint these on the sprue. Oh dear, Mr. Oxley will be mad with me painting on the sprue. That's a mortal sin, apparently. I think, but I should probably paint these on the sprue and detail them up and then put them together after that. Then you've got the control yoke here. It's not a control column in the same sense as a Spitfire, for example, or a Hurricane. This looks a bit more like a steering wheel, doesn't it? So we'll put the steering wheel on, shall we? And then after that we're looking at dropping that whole arrangement the other way up and then through the top of the fuselage there, and that's the underside one that I've got there. So let's find the top side one, shall we? I'm sure it'll be here somewhere. Or did I have the right one? Let's have a look at the numbering. That is A1. This is the A sprue, so this is A1. This is precisely what we're looking for. So I'm just going to pull those staples. They're not going anywhere. We won't scratch anything. So what we then do with this is turn this up this way, and we can then drop the cockpit essentially straight into this arrangement here. There are lots of detailed little nibbly bits here that we would need to be careful with taking out, with not taking out, I beg your pardon, and there will be some intermediate painting to be done here, but I don't know whether it's me or not, but I like the feel of this plastic. It has a feel of, I don't know, plastic quality about it. It's Tamiya, that's what it is anyway. But there will be plenty of preparation to do on these wing sections, but it does give us an idea of kind of how large this is. So it's larger than a 1/48 scale Spitfire in that sense, you know, which is only about sort of that size. You can see, being 2 engines, it would be. After this we're then looking at the nose landing bay here, which is that's painted in silver. That's interesting to see, so that will give us a bit of additional detail, a bit of additional detail to the eye. There's a second section for the nose landing gear. So those are all C-sprue parts. So what we'll do is I'll put this away here because I want to have a look and see how that looks in terms of what it looks like on the plastic, and we'll see if we can find the C-sprue, and that is, let's see if we can find it. There's your C-sprue there, look. Right, so we'll open that up, and we want, what part number do we want here? So nose landing gear, that's C28, so this is C28 here, and we can see, now that's where the nose wheel sits in, that's the cutout for the nose wheel. So let's have a quick zero in on that. You can see some small amounts of rivet detailing there. It's very, very subtle actually, you can just barely see it, and those side walls and end walls, those end panels there, C31, let's have a quick look at C31, so 19, 20, 21, 22, 30 and 31 here, so have a quick look in at them. Is that focusing in? Yes it is now, look, there we go. There's I'm going to have to look at this specifically with relation to how, you know, what extra detail might be in here in terms of pipe work. There may very well be things like brake lines to put in and various other bits and pieces, but again that's down to some individual research I need to do, again, once again, we know it's going to fit together. That's just, oh, there goes my poker, fell on the floor. Stand by. God, it's like a comedy of errors today, isn't it? For goodness sake, what's the matter? Yes, anyway, having put these nose wheel sections in and done one's detailed painting there, we then use excuse me, part number G23, which is this one, which is that's underside, so that's the the nose wheel. So we can see the offset here for the nose wheel, so the wheel itself will sit at one side here by the look of it, and that reflects the fact that the fork, it was a single fork, well, a single type of fork there, but that'll sit into there, and then these two sections are joined together, and they use, and it's quite important that you put these things in as well, a ball bearing as the weights. That's what they do with these, is they stick them to the underside of the box, so they don't go anywhere and don't roll around, and therefore won't damage the section. So you've got these three ball bearings here which operate as the weight. So it is important to put these in, and that goes, one of those goes in section 8 when you attach the fuselage halves together here, which is the sort of rear sections with the beginnings of the engine nacelles. And then you're attaching the nose with the guns. Now, I'm inclined towards the thought that attaching those guns is a sort of a dangerous thing to do, because they're the first things that are going to break, but in order to make certain that I get this reasonably right, I'm probably going to put it on. I don't know yet, I've not really decided properly what I'm going to do with that. It might be a good idea to keep it separately, knowing what other people have done when they've tried to change the build schedule for a Tamiya kit. It tends to go a bit wrong because you tend to overspray into things. That's going to need to be looked at, but we'll take a look at it. Then we're attaching further ephemera of the underwings here, including the signal lighting. So the identification lights is just 3 lights, red, green and blue, I believe it was, I think so, yes, which you can paint in with clear colorations. That's not a clear one, that's a sky blue, but I have them in my paint rack somewhere. And also other inspection hatches and various other bits and pieces, and so we'll chunter along, and we come to our wingtips here, wingtip fittings. This is quite interesting, I think. So we have turbochargers. Now, you will no doubt know that this aircraft was powered by two Allison, I beg its pardon, V1710 supercharged engines. They had a single stage supercharger, unlike the later Rolls-Royce Merlins, which had a two-stage supercharger. And in order to boost the power on this engine, what they did was installed a turbocharger. Now, the turbochargers normally might be put fairly close to an engine. In this particular case, when you've got a dirty great tail boom that you can fetch them into, you actually don't need to put them close to the engine. They're back further here. So if we look at this particular diagram here, we can see that the engine is located in here and the turbocharger is some distance behind it. Now, this has the effect of allowing it to operate in free air, and remember, at 20,000 feet the temperature is fairly low, so there's a good supply of cooling air there, but it also prevents the air from this that's charging the fuel air mixture from getting so hot that it pre-combusts, and that was a serious problem with some supercharger systems, and shall we say that pre-combustion is irksome at the very least of it, shall we say. So you need to make two of these up and put them either side, port and starboard, it's a nice piece of additional detail on the eye. It looks good on the eye, and it shows the way that the engine worked really rather well. As an aside, the takeoff procedure for the P38 was to settle at the front end of the runway when given clearance to take off, apply the brakes which you would do with the rudder pedals. So the rudder pedals at the top, you push them forward like that and they acted as brakes on the wheels, and then you could use them as rudder pedals in this way, and you push the brakes on, and then you adjusted the throttles and the boost control so that you had 40 or so inches of manifold pressure, and then you put the engine throttles up to around 3,000, I think, RPM, and allowed these turbochargers to run up to full speed before you let the brakes off and then let them go. And that meant that the turbochargers were running properly and the engines were at full power, pretty much full chat, before you started off down the runway. Now, if you did this, you could then, assure being taking off, and if things went wrong, so if the propellers went into overspeed, you had enough time to be able to slow down and deal with that. But you were assured being able to take off either with or without flaps. Now, you would ordinarily take off without flaps, and the aircraft, because it's tricycle undercarriage, doesn't fly like a tail dragger, in the sense that when you get to a certain speed the control goes light and then you know that you're about to lift off. You simply fly along until you get to around 110 miles an hour, and then you can ease back on the stick, and then the thing starts to fly into the air that way. So it's a bit of a different technique, but interesting thing about that, I think that's quite nice. So now we have quite a lot of work coming up on intake ducts and various things on the landing bay. Let's try that. Landing gear. We got right bay interior here, and then main bay parts. Moving on here, I'm not going to dwell too far on this. We saw those parts just briefly on C38, which are these here. You can see those there. Those look to be nicely moulded, to be honest with you. I'm just having a quick look. Can't actually feel any. There must be a seam on them somewhere. Yes, there is. But they do look to be nicely moulded. And there's some nice detail on them. Yeah, there's a seam. We can feel the seam there. We can just sort of see it there. But so there'll be a bit of work to take that off, but we can do that because we're modelers, eh? From there we're going on to further landing gear parts, and so there's 4 sections for the main landing gear bays, quite a lot actually. And then we're into the oil coolers, and the oil coolers sit underneath the engine, just in there. Here you can see well, you can't see it, but there are bays that allow cold air to come in and go into the oil coolers and cool the oil coolers through that radiation system. And then we're looking at the assembly of the booms. So there's booms right. We're doing all the right things first. We need another ball bearing to go in here, and radiator covers going on here. So all of this detail and ganglion that we can see on the finished aircraft is going on. We'll need to think about, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, putting some sponge in here to make certain that we don't get olive green in here if we've already treated that, because inside this is AS6. This is coloured AS6. I don't know what that would be. It may be the interior green colour, but I can be corrected on that. Then we move to left boom assembly. So it's typically detailed. It's just a repetition of the right, and then we come back to left boom assemblies here, and then putting that that ball bearing in. Probably a good idea to glue that in. Maybe some rubber solution might be an idea, or maybe super glue, something like that. You could use slow dry stuff like this, which I think is really very good, to be honest with you. I'm not paid by anybody to say that, by the way, but I just think it's rather good, so you know, I'm quite impressed with it. But you can see the yeah, you can see some other detail painting in here. XF1, that's black then, so there. And then we're into beginning to turn this into a proper aeroplane. There's no engine to build, by the way, one way or the other. And so the booms go on at that stage, yeah, there we go. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Then we have the empennage, the dual tail here, the fork tail, and the elevator. So the elevator was fitted with trim weights on either side so that it balanced the thing very easily. Pilots of this aircraft had to watch out very carefully for going too fast in a dive, because this particular aeroplane suffered from a thing that's known as Mach tuck that I explain in my substack piece, which I hope that you will enjoy. So here we see again the undercarriage. As I mentioned earlier on, we looked at this this particular piece here. We can now start to see this with the undercarriage, so we can see a single fork for the undercarriage here, where the main oleo leg comes down and then it rolls out here, so into the wheel, and there's the space for the wheel there, so it's sided in that sense. So we'll that should go in fairly easily, but there's some other bits and pieces. So this is being painted bare metal silver by the look of it, I would suggest, as it was inside here, and AS12, AS7. These are all the tinned paint, you know, the shaky rattle can paint tin things, numbers. So I shall have to get the right ones, get the right colours, because I shall use probably, as I said, either Tamiya lacquer or outlaw paints, one of the two. And then we're into undercarriage mainland gear here, and installation there. So that looks like a radiator. I think it probably is, actually. And then pylons. Now, variant, of course, we will need pylons, we will need fuel tanks. I don't really fit them, but I will today. So that's all good. And we're quite near the conclusion here at this stage, with landing gear, undercarriage covers. I'm inclined once again to probably paint the bottom of this the neutral grey colour that it needs to be, sort of almost up to the above this area, to try and make sure that we get this right and do it before all of this stuff is put on. I think that would probably be the best way of doing this, although to our great advantage these undercarriage bay doors have two halves by the look of things, so you can paint them separately and then glue them together afterwards, which seems like a nice idea, to be honest with you. So yeah, we'll probably do that. What colour are those fuel tanks? Does it say on this? Doesn't actually show you the fuel tanks on the design spec for this, but there will be colours. AS7 it's saying. I wonder if AS7 is olive drab, possibly. It might be. AS6 might be, and then AS7 might be neutral grey. Yes, AS7 is neutral grey. There we are. Then fuel tanks are going on. Some other bits and pieces. This is the crew ladder that you can climb up. So whenever the undercarriage was down, the crew ladder was deployed, and you get onto the aeroplane, by climbing up the back here and then in that way, and that would be the way that's done. So yeah, finally we go back to the cockpit again. So we have radios, and this is an SCR 274 radio. Well, how did I know that? I know that because it's written down here, you see. Aren't I clever? And then we're into the cockpit, really the completion. I have some seat belts coming for this, if I'm absolutely honest with you. I don't like the idea of decal seat belts, which is what we have with these, as I may have mentioned before. If I haven't, I'm repeating myself, but I really don't like that, to be honest with you. I don't think it looks good. I'd rather have a proper seat belt, so I'll be putting that in. Then the seat attachment here, and you've got a map case to go in. Fantastic, all the good stuff here. Look, we've got the seat back. That is the armoured bulletproof plate, and then we've got the punter. As you know, I tend not to use punters, and that's because I'm not very good at painting figures. Whatever I try with figures, I always end up with a dustbin with an old bicycle on top of it, or whatever looks like that. But the individual certainly doesn't look like human individual. I mean, normally I come up with something that looks like if you asked an alien to do a really bad drawing of a human he'd never seen and then paint it. That's what I come up with. So anyway, canopy painting, we'll do some masking on that, and so on and so forth. And we can do an open canopy variant on the A variant. So we've got A and B variants here. It's really quite straightforward. Just as an aside, by the way, when the canopies were shut and flying, the side canopies rolled up and down in very much the same way as an old style car would, with a handle that you wound round. If you took off with the side windows open, you ended up providing for a situation whereby you got an awful lot of turbulence in this area here of the empennage, which meant that flying the aircraft was actually really quite difficult. So you had to close up these windows when you were flying. They would of course be open when you wanted to get in and out, but there we are. This gun sight looks like it's going to be a real work of art, to be honest with you, and that will be a bulletproof plate there, which I think wasn't installed until later variants. I thought that was the case, but I may be wrong. And we're attaching all this, as usual with these canopy fronts, the windshields. I should be very careful with this. Those staples aren't going to cause any trouble here. You can see, let's get rid of that, there we go. I'll just zero in on this so that you can see this. Now, Tamiya have an exceptional idea with this, and I think it's really very, very good. As you can see, the canopy itself, this windshield section here, is joined onto the fuselage as one contiguous piece, and you simply drop this whole thing into the slot for the in the fuselage. So this forms part of the fuselage, this is the canopy windshield. I think that's a bloody good idea, because the join line here on this section here will be so tiny as to just look like a panel line, and I think that's a great idea. Tamiya, I think, really of all the ones I've encountered, the only ones that the only company that do it this way. Everyone else leaves you to attach a essentially a canopy screen like that and make the best of it that you can. It's not easy. I'm very much of the opinion it is not easy at all. So there we are. We can as we expect, we can see that these parts are really very nicely made. They're beautifully made. You know, they really are. You know, they're clear. There's no distortion in them at all. I mean, you can see even on the slightly curved sections, you can't see any real distortion. Just great, well done. You know, well done, manufacturers that come up with that. I know Airfix do from time to time. You know, pretty much of the time their kits are very good like that. But I do like looking at that. With Tamiya, actually, what do you get? You get a kit that's nice to build, and you know, is a real, shall we say, relief if you've had some challenging projects to do beforehand, where you've had to rescue things or, you know, do stuff in a different way. 2 propellers to fit on, and there you go. That's that, really. Oh, you've got to put those tail weight. Don't forget to put these counterbalance weights on. That's quite important. Aircraft won't fly very well without it. And that's that. Painting and applying decals. There we go. But I'm quite taken with this kit. I think I might do this quite soon. I hope in amongst the projects. As I say, I've got some other projects to complete first. And there's a necessity for doing them for reasons that will become apparent at some stage in the future, but I won't say what that's all about just yet. But nevertheless, in the meantime, I shall be cracking on with other things between now and Christmas time. I hope that you're enjoying your kit building and your modelling, and if you went to the IPMS show in Telford, I hope that you enjoyed that. And if you didn't go to the IPMS show in Telford, you're probably like me and you're meaning to go next year, and if you are, then maybe I will see you there. Do join us on Moz's Monday night soirees, where I am always pleased to be invited, and if I am, which I tend to be fairly regularly these days. For some strange reason, he seems to value my opinions on that show. Well, thank you very much, Moz, to you. I shall let you crack on with the rest of your day, and thank you for taking the time to listen to my blether today. Don't forget my Substack piece. Take care for now, everyone. Bye bye.